Grandma and Grandpa told Dad to forgive Uncle for getting Mom pregnant. So, Dad walked away from all of them and I went with him. I didn't understand everything at first. I was 11. What did I know about adult problems? Our house used to feel normal. Dad Quentin would come home covered in brick dust and mortar, smelling like cement and sweat. He built garden walls and patios, the kind of work that left his hands rough and his back sore. But he'd still toss me in the air when he got home, still make terrible jokes at dinner that made Mom roll her eyes. Mom Iris worked part-time at a dental office downtown. She'd come home complaining about difficult patients or gossiping about the orthodontist's new car. Normal stuff, boring stuff. Uncle Troy came around a lot. He was Dad's younger brother. Worked as a pipeline inspector. Always had stories about finding leaks or dealing with county bureaucrats. He was the fun uncle. The one who'd slip me $20 and tell me not to tell my parents. The one who'd stay for dinner and make everyone laugh. That was before. The last 3 months, something changed. I noticed it in small ways at first. Conversations that stopped when I walked into a room. Mom spending hours on the phone in the bathroom with the door locked. Dad stopped laughing at dinner. Just sat there pushing food around his plate. Mom stopped looking at him directly like at all. Uncle Troy still visited. But the air felt different when he was there. Thick. Wrong. I figured it was adult stuff. Taxes or bills or whatever parents worried about. I figured they'd handle it. Then came that night. I was supposed to be asleep. It was a school night, maybe 10 o'clock. I'd gotten up for water and heard voices from my parents' bedroom. Not yelling that would have been easier to dismiss. This was worse. Low, intense, the kind of talking that sounds like breaking. I stood in the hallway, cup in my hand, frozen. Mom's voice came through the door, shaking. I'm pregnant. It's Troy. Silence. Then Dad's voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it. My brother. I don't remember walking back to my room. I don't remember getting into bed. I just remember lying there in the dark. My brain trying to process words that didn't make sense together. Pregnant. Troy's brother. I was 11. I understood what pregnant meant. I understood who Uncle Troy was. But my brain couldn't connect them the way those words suggested. Except it could, and it did. The next morning, Dad went to work like normal. Mom made breakfast like normal, but nothing was normal. Dad didn't kiss her goodbye. She didn't remind him about picking up milk on the way home. They moved around the kitchen like strangers, forced to share a space. I ate my cereal and pretended I didn't notice. The days that followed were worse. The house became this silent, tense thing. Dad would come home, shower, eat dinner without speaking. Mom tried to act like everything was fine, asking me about school, about homework, about things that suddenly felt impossibly small. Uncle Troy didn't come around anymore. His absence was loud. I kept waiting for them to fix it. That's what adults do, right? They handle problems. They make things okay again. But days passed and nothing changed. Just silence and careful avoidance. And the feeling that our house was holding its breath. 5 days after I'd overheard, the phone rang during dinner. Dad answered, listened for maybe 30 seconds, then said okay and hung up. Mom looked at him. What did they want? Your parents want us at their house someday. All of us. Not your parents. My parents. Dad's parents. My grandparents. My stomach dropped even though I didn't fully understand why. Mom looked down at her plate. What time? 2 o'clock. That was it. Conversation over. We finished eating in silence. Sunday felt like it took forever to arrive and came too fast at the same time. I got dressed in church clothes. Even though we weren't going to church, the car ride to my grandparents' house was completely silent. I sat in the back seat watching the back of my parents' heads. They didn't look at each other once. We pulled into the driveway. Uncle Troy's truck was already there. Through the front window, I could see everyone gathered in the living room. Grandpa Hank, Grandma Bonnie, Uncle Troy sitting in the armchair by the fireplace. Dad turned off the engine, sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel. Then he got out and walked to the door. I followed, feeling like I was walking into something I couldn't walk back out of. Grandma Bonnie opened the door before Dad could knock, like she'd been watching through the window. Warren, come in. Her voice was tight, formal. We walked into the living room. I'd been in this room 1,000 times. Birthday parties, Christmases, random Sunday dinners, but it felt different now. Wrong. Grandpa Hank sat on the love seat with Grandma. Straight back like he was in a courtroom. He used to be a postal supervisor before he retired. Still carried himself like someone used to being in charge. Uncle Troy was in the armchair by the fireplace. He wasn't looking at anyone, just staring at his hands. Mom took a seat on the couch, already pulling a tissue from her purse. Dad sat on the other couch. I sat next to him close enough that our shoulders touched. I reached for his hand. His fingers were rough from work. Familiar. He held on tight. Grandpa cleared his throat. Warren, Iris, thank you for coming. Like we'd had a choice. We're here to discuss the situation. The situation. Not what Troy and Iris did. Not the affair. The situation. What happened was unfortunate. Grandpa chose his words carefully. But we're family. We work through these things. Grandma nodded along. These things happen, Warren. We're all human. We make mistakes. I felt Dad's hand tense in mine, but he didn't say anything. The baby is innocent in all this, Grandpa continued. An innocent child who deserves a family. Both sides of the family. Divorce helps no one. Grandma added. Her voice had that pleading edge. Especially not your child. She gestured toward me without looking at me directly. Uncle Troy mumbled something. Might have been sorry. Might have been nothing. Still wouldn't look up. Mom was crying quietly, tissue pressed to her face. Troy made a mistake. Grandpa's voice got firmer. A terrible mistake. But he's your brother, Warren. Blood is thicker than water. That means something. Think of the future, Grandma said. Think of birthdays, holidays, graduations. You'd tear all that apart over pride. I watched Dad's face. It was completely blank. Empty, like he wasn't even there. The scandal would hurt everyone. Grandpa went on. Your business depends on reputation. Word gets around. And what about your child? Having divorced parents going back and forth. We can work through this. Grandma interrupted. Marriage counseling, time, forgiveness. That's what family does. They kept talking, explaining, reasoning, building their case like lawyers. And Dad just sat there, didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't defend himself or tell them they were insane. Just sat there holding my hand, staring at nothing. I don't know how long it went on. Felt like hours, probably 15 minutes. Finally, they stopped talking. Waited for Dad to respond. The silence stretched out. Uncle Troy shifted in his chair. Mom sniffled. Grandma looked at Grandpa, uncertain. Then Dad nodded, just once. Slow, like he was acknowledging he'd heard them. That was it. He stood up, still holding my hand. Grandma's face brightened. So, you'll stay? You'll work on the marriage? Dad didn't answer. Just walked toward the door. Warren. Grandpa stood up. We're not finished. Dad kept walking. Opened the door, stepped outside. I followed behind us. Voices rising. Warren, you're being unreasonable. Think about what you're doing. Dad got in the car. Started it. Backed out of the driveway. Didn't look back. Didn't say a word. The drive home was silent. Completely silent. Not even the radio on. When we got home, Mom's car pulled in right behind us. She'd driven separately. Smart. Dad went inside. I followed him to my room, did homework, pretended everything was normal. At dinner, no one spoke. Mom tried once. Warren, can we? Not now, that was all he said. The days after were worse than before. Dad went to work every morning, came home every evening, made dinner, watched TV, went to bed. But something was different. He wasn't sad. He wasn't angry. He was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes after a decision's already been made. The phone rang sometimes. He'd glance at the caller ID, his parents' number, and let it go to voicemail. Never listened to the messages, just deleted them. Mom slept in the guest room. She tried talking to him a few times. He'd just say, not now, or not respond at all. Uncle Troy didn't come around, obviously. I watched Dad carefully, waiting for him to explode or cry or do something, but he just kept that same steady calm, going through the motions. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On Friday, I noticed him looking at something on his phone during dinner. Apartment listings. I realized when I glanced over Saturday, he went out for a few hours. Came back. Didn't say where he'd been. Sunday, exactly 1 week after the meeting, I came home from my friend's house around 4 o'clock. Dad's work truck was in the driveway, middle of the afternoon on a Sunday. That was weird. He usually spent Sundays doing yard work or watching football. I opened the front door. Boxes everywhere, moving boxes, the brown cardboard kind, some already taped shut and stacked by the door, others still open, half filled. Dad was in the living room wrapping dishes and newspaper. Methodical, calm. Each plate wrapped carefully placed in the box. Another plate wrapped. Packing tape. Markers. Everything labeled in his neat handwriting. Kitchen. Bathroom. Bedroom. Not chaotic. Not rushed. Final. Dad. He looked up at me. We're leaving. We're leaving. I stood in the doorway, backpack still on my shoulder. When? Today. Dad placed another wrapped plate in the box. I found an apartment. Signed the lease yesterday. Storage units already paid for. He'd been planning this all week. While sitting quietly at dinner while deleting voicemails while looking calm and empty, he'd been planning. Where? I asked. Other side of town. Different school district. He taped up the box, labeled it. It's small. 2 bedrooms. Not much, but it's ours. Ours? He stood up, looked at me directly. I'm leaving. You don't have to come. My stomach twisted. Your mom will want you to stay. I won't fight her on it. His voice was steady. Matter of fact, this is your choice. No pressure either way. I looked around the living room. At the couch where we used to watch movies, at the fireplace Dad had built himself. Each brick placed by hand. At the hallway leading to my bedroom, the one with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling that Dad had helped me put up when I was 7. Then I thought about the meeting, about Grandpa and Grandma sitting there like judges, telling Dad to swallow it, to forgive, to pretend, about Mom and Uncle Troy, about who had stood up for Dad. Nobody. I'll pack my stuff. Dad nodded once, went back to wrapping dishes. I went to my room and grabbed my duffel bag from the closet. Started choosing what mattered: clothes, my favorite books, the baseball glove Dad had bought me last year, my phone charger, left most of my toys, the posters on the walls, the shelf of participation trophies. All that stuff felt like it belonged to a different kid. Anyway, I heard the front door open downstairs. Mom's voice confused. "Warren, what's going on? Why are all these?" Her voice cut off. She'd seen the boxes. "You're really doing this?" Her voice went high, panicky. "You're really leaving?" Dad's voice calm. "Yes, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can." "No, what about our child?" I came downstairs with my bag. Dad was loading boxes into his truck. Mom was in the driveway crying. "They're making their own choice," Dad said, carrying another box past her. Mom saw me. "You don't have to go. You can stay here. This is your home." I walked past her to the truck. "Please." She was really crying now. "Please don't do this." I put my bag in the truck bed, went back inside for another load. Dad had rented a small trailer attached to the truck hitch. We loaded it methodically. Boxes. Bags. The kitchen table we'd eaten at for years. Dad's toolbox. The TV. Mom stood in the driveway the whole time crying, begging, trying to get me to look at her. I didn't. It took 2 hours to load everything. When we finished, Dad closed the trailer door, latched it, got in the driver's seat. I got in the passenger side. Mom ran to my window. "Please. Please talk to me. You're my child. I love you." Dad started the engine. We pulled out of the driveway. I heard Mom calling after us, but I didn't look back. The apartment was on the other side of town. Ground floor unit in a small complex. Beige walls, brown carpet, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, tiny kitchen. Basic, clean, empty. We unloaded in silence. Dad set up my room first. Bed frame, mattress, desk. My boxes stacked in the corner. "You can decorate however you want," he said. "Paint it if you want to." The main room had our couch, the TV, the kitchen table. Dad's bedroom had his bed and dresser. That was it. We didn't have plates anymore. Those were packed in storage. So, we ordered pizza and ate it straight from the box sitting on the floor. Paper towels for napkins. "It's not much," Dad said, looking around at the bare walls. "It's quiet," I said. He looked at me, really looked at me, then nodded because he understood what I meant. No tension, no whispers, no pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Just quiet. We slept that night in our new place. I could hear Dad moving around in his room, probably not sleeping, but he wasn't crying, wasn't angry, just there. The next few days were a blur of settling in. Dad went to work every morning, came home every evening. I started at my new school mid-semester. It was smaller than my old one. Nobody knew me, nobody asked questions. I sat alone at lunch the first day. Second day, a kid named Adrian asked if I played Minecraft. We ate together, talked about video games and the math homework. Easy, normal. He didn't ask where I came from or why I transferred. Just accepted it. The apartment phone rang sometimes. Dad would glance at the caller ID, see a number, and let it ring out. Voicemails piled up. I heard fragments when Dad checked them before deleting. "Warren, call us back. We need to talk about this. You're being unreasonable." He'd listen for about 3 seconds, then delete. Never called back. 2 weeks in, things almost felt normal. I was doing homework at the kitchen table. Dad was making dinner, spaghetti from a jar, following a YouTube video on his phone about how to cook pasta properly. The apartment smelled like garlic bread. Dad was humming something. For a moment, it felt like we'd be okay. Then his phone buzzed on the counter. A text message. Dad glanced at it. His jaw tightened just slightly. He picked up the phone. Read the message, then deleted it without responding, went back to stirring the pasta. "Grandma and Grandpa?" I asked. "Yeah." "What did they want?" "Doesn't matter." He drained the pasta, served it onto our mismatched plates. We ate dinner, talked about my math quiz tomorrow, about the retaining wall Dad was building at some house across town. But I realized something in that moment. Dad wasn't going to engage, wasn't going to argue or explain or defend himself. He was just done. The phone could ring 1,000 times. They could send 1,000 messages. He'd already walked away. And I'd walked with him. The first months were about routine. Dad left for work at 6 o'clock every morning. I'd wake up to the sound of his truck starting, the smell of coffee he'd made. He'd leave a note on the counter, lunch money on table, or leftovers in fridge. He worked hard, harder than I remembered him working before. Took every job he could get. Retaining walls, garden patios, custom brick mailboxes. Came home tired, hand-stained with mortar, but he'd still make dinner. We'd eat together, do dishes together, and he'd help me with homework if I needed it. Simple, steady. About a month in, I noticed he smiled at something on TV. Just a quick thing, barely there, but it was real. First time I'd seen that in months. What? He asked, catching me staring. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was the first sign he might actually be okay. School got easier. I made a few more friends besides Adrian. Joined the robotics club because it met after school and gave me somewhere to be until Dad got off work. The teacher, Mr. Patel, said I had a knack for problem solving. My grades improved. No more distractions at home. No more tension making it hard to focus. I could actually concentrate on quadratic equations and Spanish vocab instead of wondering if my parents were going to start fighting when I got home. Got my first A in English. Dad put the test on the fridge with a magnet. Proud of you, he said, just that. But it mattered. Weekend mornings, Dad started teaching me things. How to mix mortar properly, how to lay bricks in a straight line, how to use a level. Might as well learn something useful, he said, handing me a trowel. My hands got dirty. He corrected my technique patiently, showing me how to spread the mortar evenly, how to tap the brick into place just right. We didn't talk about Mom or Uncle Troy or any of it. Just worked. 6 months in, Dad came home one day and said, found us a house. Not big, not fancy. Small rental on the east side, 2 bedrooms, tiny yard with a chain-link fence, but it was a house. We moved on a Saturday. Dad's coworker helped us with the heavy stuff. Took half the day to get everything in. I got actual bedroom furniture, not just an air mattress anymore. Dad built me a desk from scrap lumber, sanded it smooth, stained it dark, put it under my window. Better for homework, he said. The backyard was mostly dirt and weeds. Dad spent a Sunday building a small brick planter along the fence. Planted flowers, marigolds, and petunias. Since when do you garden? I asked. Since now. That night, I heard him humming in the kitchen while he cleaned up from dinner. The same tuneless hum he used to do when I was younger before everything fell apart. I didn't mention it. Just felt relieved. The calls kept coming. Different numbers showing up on Dad's phone, Grandma trying from her cell, then the house phone, then Grandpa's cell. Dad would glance at the screen, see who it was, let it ring out. Voicemails piled up. He stopped listening to them entirely. Just saw the notification and deleted. Mail came too. Cards in Grandma's handwriting. Dad would open them. Always open them, read them standing by the counter, then fold them back up and put them in the kitchen drawer without a word. Never responded. I asked him once, maybe 3 months in, don't you want to answer? No. That was it. No explanation, no guilt, just no. Time kept moving. Dad joined a community softball league. Played on Sunday mornings, came home sweaty and smiling, telling me about some guy who hit a homer or how his team almost won. He made friends, people from work, people from the league. They'd stop by sometimes for a beer, sit in our small backyard, talk about nothing important, normal adult stuff. I realized Dad was rebuilding, not just our living situation, himself. By the time I turned 12, things felt solid, stable. I'd stopped looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. This was just our life now. Then the holidays started approaching. November hit and with it came the shift in weather and the inevitable question of Thanksgiving plans. Adrian asked me at lunch what my family was doing. I shrugged. Just me and my dad. Nothing big. That's cool, he said. No judgment. His parents were divorced, split holidays. He got it. The mail came on a Tuesday afternoon. I grabbed it from the mailbox on my way in from school. Bills, junk, and a thick cream-colored envelope with Grandma's handwriting. Fancy. Formal. I left it on the counter. Dad came home. Saw it. Opened it while I did homework at the kitchen table. An invitation, printed like a wedding invite for Thanksgiving dinner at Grandpa and Grandma's house. Please come home. Family should be together during the holidays. Dad read it, folded it, put it in the drawer with all the others, washed his hands, started making dinner. Are we going? I asked, even though I already knew. No. He pulled chicken from the fridge, started seasoning it, moved around the kitchen like the invitation didn't exist. That night, the phone rang during dinner, Grandma's number. Dad glanced at it, let it ring out. We finished eating, cleaned up, watched a show on TV. The phone rang again before bed. Same number. Dad turned the ringer off. In the morning, there were 3 voicemails. He deleted them without listening. Thanksgiving was 2 weeks away. Thanksgiving came. Just us. Dad bought a turkey. His first time cooking one. He watched YouTube videos all morning, basting it every 20 minutes like the video said. It came out a little dry, but edible. I made stuffing from a box and cranberry sauce from a can. We had rolls from the grocery store bakery and green beans that Dad overcooked slightly. We ate at our kitchen table, watched football, fell asleep on the couch during the third quarter. Simple, peaceful hours. No forced conversations, no walking on eggshells, no pretending. Best Thanksgiving I could remember. December came with Christmas lights going up in the neighborhood. We got a small tree from the lot down the street. Decorated it with cheap ornaments from the dollar store. Dad got me a new bike. I got him a coffee mug with "World's Okay Dad" printed on it. He laughed, actually laughed, and used it every morning after that. We spent Christmas Day watching movies and eating leftover pizza. It was perfect because it was real. Life kept getting better in small ways. Dad's business was growing. Word of mouth referrals. Repeat clients. People liked his work. Solid, reliable, exactly what they asked for. He started getting calls for bigger projects, a whole driveway, a complete backyard renovation. He hired a high school kid to help him haul supplies on weekends. I made honor roll that semester. Dad put the report card on the fridge next to my English test from months ago. "Proud of you," he said. Becoming a pattern. The calls still came sometimes, less frequent now, but they came mostly around holidays. Grandma's number would pop up. Dad would glance at his phone, silence it, keep doing whatever he was doing. Cards arrived in the mail. Dad would open them, read them, put them in the drawer, never responded. One time, his cousin Priya texted, "I saw it when Dad left his phone on the counter while he showered. Family asking about you at Christmas. Kind of awkward. Hope you're good." Dad must have seen it later. Never mentioned it. Never replied as far as I knew. I started to understand something. Dad wasn't cutting people off out of anger. He wasn't punishing anyone. He was just not participating. The silence was his answer. I turned 13 in February. Dad took me to the batting cages and bought me my favorite burger. After normal birthday stuff that night, lying in bed, I thought about everything that had happened, about the choice I'd made to leave with Dad. I didn't regret it. Dad had taught me something important without ever saying it directly. You can't force people to see what they don't want to see. You can only control your own choices. He chose peace over proximity. I chose the same. Sometimes I'd scroll through social media. I still had some cousins on there from before. Distant ones, not Uncle Troy's kids or anything. He didn't have any, as far as I knew. Holiday photos would pop up. Thanksgiving at Grandpa and Grandma's house. Christmas morning. They looked strained. Smiles that didn't reach eyes. Fewer people in each year's pictures. Grandma looked older. Tired. I'd scroll past without commenting, without reacting. That life felt like it belonged to someone else now. A different kid in a different family. Time moved. I made the robotics team. Dad came to our first competition. Cheered when we placed third. His business kept growing. We talked about maybe buying a house someday. Actually buying, not renting. Give it another year, Dad said. Save up a proper down payment. He was planning ahead, building towards something. We both were. Then 2 years after we left, something changed. I was 13, starting 8th grade. Dad had just hired an apprentice, a guy named Oliver, who was learning the trade. Business was good enough to need the help. We'd gone to look at a house that weekend. Small, 3 bedrooms, needed work, but had good bones. Dad walked through it with that look he got when he was calculating costs and possibilities. "We could make this work," he said. I could see it. Our house. Actually, ours. Monday afternoon, I got home from school before Dad. Grabbed the mail like usual. Bills, junk flyers, and a thick envelope from a law office. My stomach dropped even though I didn't know why. I left it on the counter. Dad came home 20 minutes later, saw it immediately, picked it up, looked at the return address, opened it, standing right there. His face showed nothing. Just read it quietly. Flipped through the pages. Then he held it out to me. Divorce papers. Mom was filing officially. After 2 years of silence, she was making it legal. "Is this it then?" I asked. "Really over?" Dad set the papers on the counter. "It was over 2 years ago. This is just paperwork." He pulled a pen from the drawer. Sat down, signed every page that needed his signature. Didn't hesitate. Didn't pause. Just signed. Put them back in the return envelope. Sealed it. Wrote the address on the front. "I'll mail this tomorrow," he said. Then he started making dinner like nothing had happened, but something had. This was the final piece, the official end of what was already long dead. I watched him move around the kitchen. Calm. Steady. Sure. He'd walked away 2 years ago. Now it was just becoming official. 3 years passed. Not dramatically, just passed. Dad mailed the divorce papers the next day like he said he would. A few months later, a thick envelope came back. Official documents signed by a judge, stamped and filed. Dad put them in a folder, filed it away. Never looked at it again as far as I knew. We bought the house we'd looked at. Took almost a year to save enough, but we did it. 3 bedrooms, small yard, needed work, but it was ours. Actually, ours. Dad renovated it himself. I helped on weekends. We replaced the kitchen counters, fixed the leaky pipes, repainted every room, built a brick walkway from the driveway to the front door, made it home. His business kept growing. Quinton stone and brick printed on the side of his truck. Now had 2 full-time guys working for him. Steady contracts, good reputation. I turned 16, got my license, started working part-time at the bookstore downtown. Saved money for college, already thinking about it, even though it was 2 years away. Had friends who knew nothing about any of this. To them, I was just a kid with a single dad who worked construction. Normal, boring, and it was in the best way. 5 years to the day after we left. Neither of us mentioned it. But I knew, and I think Dad knew I knew. He made my favorite dinner, chicken parmesan from scratch this time, not jarred sauce. We ate at our table in our kitchen in our house. Talked about normal things, my chemistry test, his new project installing a brick patio for some family across town. Whether I needed new tires on my car yet. Just life. After dinner, I sat on the porch while Dad worked in the garage. He was building a small brick mailbox to replace our metal one. Side project just for us. I could hear him working. The scrape of the trowel, the tap of brick on brick and humming. That tuneless hum he'd been doing more and more lately. Content. That's what it was. I thought about the phone, realized I couldn't remember the last time it had rung with their number. Sometime in the last year, the calls had just stopped. No final voicemail, no dramatic goodbye, they just stopped trying, and I hadn't even noticed when the mail still came sometimes. Not often, maybe twice a year now. Cards on my birthday, on Christmas, Dad's birthday. He'd open them, read them, put them in the drawer with all the others, never responded. The drawer was full now. Years of unopened conversations. One-sided attempts, but the silence wasn't cruel. It wasn't punishment. It was just the answer. I thought about the 2 lives sometimes. The one we left. Mom still there, probably still in the same house. Uncle Troy, I had no idea where he was. Didn't want to know. Grandma and Grandpa getting older. Holidays probably quieter each year. The one we built. This house. Dad's business. My plans for college. Peace. Stability. Respect. They'd stayed in that moment. Stuck trying to make something broken work. We kept moving forward. That was the difference. One Saturday morning, months after the 5-year mark, I came downstairs to find Dad making breakfast, radio playing, sun coming through the kitchen window. "What do you want to do today?" he asked, flipping pancakes. "Doesn't matter long as we're not dealing with family drama." He laughed. Set a plate in front of me. Deal. We ate breakfast. Talked about my college applications, about the estimate he needed to write up for a client. Normal stuff. The doorbell didn't ring. The phone didn't buzz. It was just us. Our morning, our house. Later, I helped Dad finish the brick mailbox. We installed it at the end of our driveway, cemented it in place. It had last decades. Solid, permanent, like everything else we'd built. That evening, sitting on the couch watching some show, I thought about the word home. Used to mean the house with Mom. The place where holidays happened, where Uncle Troy visited, where Grandma and Grandpa lived 20 minutes away. That place still existed somewhere. Same address, probably same furniture, but it stopped being home 5 years ago. Home was this small house that we renovated ourselves. Dad's truck in the driveway. The smell of whatever we were trying to cook for dinner. The quiet evenings, the easy conversations. Home was knowing you're valued. Home was peace. A letter came one day, maybe a month later, maybe 2. Time blurred together in a good way now. Grandma's handwriting on the envelope. It sat on the counter for a few hours until Dad got home. He saw it, picked it up, looked at it, put it in the drawer with the others, unopened. Not out of anger, not out of spite, just indifference. That life ended 5 years ago. This life began. People probably still talked about it in the old neighborhood at family gatherings we didn't attend. Remember, Warren? Such a shame. So stubborn. Let them think that. I knew different. Dad didn't fight for people who wouldn't stand for him. He walked away with his head up. Built something better. Taught me to do the same. They tried calling, sending messages saying we should come home. But we are home. We've been home for 5 years. Just took them that long to realize we weren't coming back. That night, Dad sat in his chair reading something on his phone. I was on the couch with a book for English class. The house was quiet, peaceful. He looked up at one point. "You good?" "Yeah." I said. "I'm good." And I was. We both were. Dad taught me the most important thing. You don't fight for people who won't stand up for you. You walk away with dignity. You build something real. That's what we did. 5 years ago, I thought leaving meant losing family. I was wrong. We didn't lose family. We found it. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.